Hello, magical people. So, as promised, here's my hospital update. Little boy is sleeping. Let's hope he stays down for this whole video. We'll see. Cross your fingers. This is kind of following up from my birth video. So, if you haven't seen that, please go watch that first. It'll help this make a little bit more sense. So, after you give birth at my hospital, they do an hour of tummy time, and I still had the same nurse who couldn't figure out if I was dilated or not. And then during that time, they kind of, fix everything up, make sure you're good to go. They make you go to the bathroom to make sure you can pee, and then hustle you upstairs. I mean, it felt like super fast, and it was kind of wild. Like I was still kind of in shock, in a daze that all this had happened. And they're like, okay, we're moving you. And it was a lot. I also didn't really get to eat. They did bring me some food, but I didn't really get to eat it because I was holding him. So I was like, bring my food. But they give you, like, we got a little cart. They have a bigger cart, but we got a little cart to move upstairs. And we just didn't have enough space to grab it. So I was holding the baby. The nurse was rolling me. Then Joe had the whole cart. And so the food got left behind, which I was really sad about. So then we get upstairs and we're introduced to our team upstairs. And she was really nice, a nice lady, but she was kind of like, best way I can describe her is like a like Spanish mom, kind of bossy, like very to the point, very black and white. And she was like, and I have like all these kids at home, and all that, and she was Spanish, or I'm not sure. She spoke Spanish, so she was super nice though, but just kind of like had that personality. So we get up there, and Elliot is kind of like coughing and kind of choking on amniotic fluid. So he sounds really gurgly, and she just keeps giving him these looks like, is he okay? And she said when he's making this one particular noise, it means he's not breathing or he's struggling to breathe. And she basically like said, if he doesn't stop that, I'm going to have to take him to the NICU. And I kind of felt like threatened by that. So whenever he did that, we had to take the bulb syringe and like clean out his mouth. So then now I'm like, he's an hour and a few minutes old, and I'm paranoid as heck because this lady has said he's basically not breathing sometimes, and you have to do this or he could choke, and it could be awful, and ring me, and all this stuff. And so I'm also starving, so Joe goes to Publix to get me some food. I'm not really sure why he chose Publix. Like, there are other places open, but Can you hear him fussing? All right, let's see if we can get through this. So, and this whole time I'm like afraid to put him down, afraid to go to the bathroom, afraid to do anything in case I'm gonna miss a moment where he's doing that stuff. And the nurses come in like it seems like every hour. They're in there all the time when you're up or like in the recovery unit, and always messing with me, always like checking my blood pressure, doing all this stuff to me to make sure I'm okay, make sure he's okay. Then they bring in the NICU nurse because he's still kind of doing all this stuff. And she was like, I think he's okay. We just need to like help him get all that out. And, she's like, and it's unusual because usually when you have a vaginal birth, you don't have this issue. So I'm gonna have to go get him. Hang on. Okay, so now I have him, and hopefully he'll be good. So I'm kind of like freaking out, terrified, and then people want to come visit and all that stuff, and I basically said, not tonight, let's do it tomorrow, because I mean, it started getting late fast. So, because I had him at 4:15. So then, Joe sleeps and I am awake. I'm also still attempting to breastfeed, which isn't going over well. He's latching and everything pretty good, but it hurts real bad. And I didn't find out till later that he had a tongue tie, so I was just kind of like suffering this whole time. Plus, you're in pain, and like, oh my God, did my shoulders and back hurt so much. Like, they hurt more than anything else. And it was like, yeah. So it was kind of awful. So he's still in a sleeper because I'm hoping he'll fall back asleep. Um, so it was just kind of awful. And then, finally at one point in time, I woke Joe up and I was like, I need to sleep. I basically haven't slept in like a real long time. I kind of slept the night before. I didn't sleep, at all today. I need to sleep some. And he's like, okay, I'll watch the baby. Meaning he was going to watch the baby, and if the baby cried, he would come get him out of the bassinet. But because he was doing that choking thing, I was like, absolutely not. You're going to hold him in your arms, and you're not going to sleep, and you're not going to close your eyes, and you're just going to stare at him. So I felt kind of bad, but, and I had to show him how to use the syringe thing, because he hadn't seen, he hadn't really done it or seen like how bad it could get, because he was at Publix when it happened the most. And then the NICU nurse came back in and checked him and said he was still doing good, and we just needed to keep an eye on that. So then I'm finally, I slept like an hour. Then here, take your pacifier. He really would like another bottle, but he literally just ate 8 ounces, and he can't have one. So then, sorry, this is all over the place. Mom life. So then got up the next day, and everybody's like, oh, we need to visit. We want to visit. We want to visit. And I'm like, still struggling. Still struggling to breastfeed. He's like not happy. And are you going to be not happy now? Do you want to try a different position? Maybe we'll have to redo this video. So it was tough. And so I was like, all right, yeah, come visit. And so they came and visited, and that was Joe's brother, sister-in-law, and one of their 3 kids. And I love them to death. But oh boy, I was stressed about that kid and my teeny tiny baby, because he's a 3-year-old, and 3-year-olds are just kind of wild. And he was running all over the place, and he was trying to figure out what everything was, which is totally normal, but it was just like really overwhelming for me. And they had offered like, oh, we'll come at one at a time, we'll leave him at home. And I'm like, that's not fair, because you guys live over an hour away, so from the hospital. So I was like, everybody come. But Becca held him while I did get my first shower, which was really nice. I was excited about that. So then we continued to struggle to breastfeed. I got a new nurse, and she had the NICU lady come in several times to check on him, because he was still doing that thing. And then Joe's mom came and visited, which lasted like 3 minutes, because he was crying and I had to breastfeed, and I wasn't comfortable breastfeeding in front of them, so I had to kick him out of the room. And then when they like walked around for a while to see like if they could come back in, but he breastfeeds for like, well, at least at that time, he would breastfeed for like over an hour just to wiggle worm, just because it wasn't getting anything. Like, we did not know, my colostrum hadn't even come in yet, so it was all struggle bus. So finally the night comes, and I'm super stressed still, and I'm super like, all the things that happen when you're a first time mom. So it just it was tough. It was really tough. And that's when you're like trying to love on him and trying to have a good experience. And I was just like, I don't know what I'm doing. I feel awful. I feel like I'm not doing anything right. He's unhappy. I'm unhappy. Joe's trying to help, but there's not much he can do. I mean, really. So it was just kind of like, ugh. So then, the night comes and I'm in so much pain. My back hurts so bad. So when we took our birth class, the lady, which we took at that hospital from a nurse that worked at that hospital, she said, bring with you a heating pad because you may want to use it during labor or after. So we did. And then I was like, Joe, give me my heating pad. Like maybe that'll help. Because I'm already on Motrin, and the next thing that they were offering me was Oxy, and I was like, I do not want to take Oxy for some back pain. Like, that just sounds like a ridiculous leap from Motrin to Oxy. So I get my heating pad on. I'm like literally 3 a.m., still breastfeeding. The nurses come in several times. I probably look like I'm like half crying because I'm in pain. My nipples are in pain. And the nurse was like, I told you this night was going to be hard. And I was like, this is different than, like, she was like, he's going to cluster feed. I was like, this is different. He hasn't let go. Like, we've been literally feeding all night long and nothing's happening. He's really mad. Joe's asleep because he can't feed him, you know. And so finally I woke Joe up and I was like, what do I do? And he was like, we need to ask for formula because he's unhappy and we need to sleep. So we went and pressed the call button, and then the nurse's station was like, what do you need? And we are like, we need some formula. And then like 20 minutes passed, 30 minutes passed, and then I'm like, seriously, we need this now. I'm at my wit's end. I'm sitting there crying. So she comes in and she takes away my heating pad because she said it's against hospital policy to have it, which made me mad because I was like, I literally was told by someone who works here to bring it, but whatever. Like, if it's hospital policy, that is what it is. And then she was like, I told you this night was going to be hard, and, you know, these cluster feeding, and this is totally normal. I'm like, I need to sleep. I have to sleep at this point. And he's not stopped feeding this entire time. I'm, like, literally in tears. And so she finally comes in and shows us how to formula feed him, and she like does the first feed with him. And so he finally is happy after we do that. And I'm like, oh my God, like he was just starving the whole time. He wasn't getting anything from me. So we slept for the first time, and it was probably like 6 a.m. They do the nurse shift changes at 7. So at 7 a.m., all the new nurses came in. The cleaning crew comes in. The food team comes in. They call you and say, what is your order for later once you finally get back to sleep? Then they took him to get, why can't I remember the word? Brain fart, whatever, you know, to get his penis fixed. Not fixed. You know what I mean? I can't think of the word. This mom brain is real bad. So then they bring him back in the room, and I was asleep while he did it because I was exhausted. And then she's like, do you want me to take him to the nurse's like area and I can hold him and be with him on my lunch? And I was like, no, I don't want you to take my baby, but I appreciate it because I see that you see that I'm struggling. So then, you know, they start saying, oh, you're going to leave in an hour. And we had this like little Ukrainian nurse, and she was like, you're going to leave in an hour. And we got all my discharge papers signed, and she's like, go ahead and pack everything. So Joe packs the whole car, and an hour passes, and nobody has come back to say anything. And now I don't have diapers, I don't have my formula, I don't have anything because Joe packed the car because she told us to, because we're going to leave in an hour. And so then I had to have Joe go back out to the car and unpack some of the stuff and bring it back in. And then we're still waiting. And like another hour passes. And then the lactation consultant comes in, and she goes over like all this stuff with me to try and get my supply going, and she, you know, a ton of stuff. And she was really nice. But it was like so much information. She did have a few pamphlets to give me so I could read it later, because like it was a lot. But then then they come back to check his jaundice levels again, because the nurse had apparently said, the nurse had also told us that we could leave an hour, that he looked jaundiced. So they did the pricking. Then we had to wait for that test to come back, and wait then for permission from his pediatrician to leave once that came back, because it was like on the verge of being high, but it wasn't high. So it's been like 4 hours now, and I don't have, like, I also denied my lunch, because they came by and they're like, hey, do you want your lunch? And I was like, no, because we're leaving, because she told us we were leaving. So starving, have a new baby, had no supplies, and then finally she's like, okay, bye, you can leave. And so we go up to the front, and I was holding him, and no one came with a wheelchair to like take me out or anything. And we go up to the front, because you have to like basically sign out your child. And there's a really, really, really nice black nurse there who was like, looked really confused at why we were there and why no one had come up with us. And so she helps us put him in the carrier, and then she's like, do you really want to walk out? And I was like, I mean, I don't know, because like nobody said anything else. And so she got me in a wheelchair, and she pushed me out while Joe carried Elliot in the carrier. So it was just wild. Like, it was so many different, like, you interact with so many different people when you're in the hospital, and then you're telling them all the same thing over and over again, and you're bothered constantly by everybody trying to like check on him, check on you, give you food, clean your room. Like, I had housekeeping would come in and do the typical hotel room housekeeping, and then just barge in. I was like, I literally just got to sleep, or I just got him to sleep, and it always seemed like the wrong moment, and then it was just nuts. So I would say like that part of my hospital stay wasn't that great, and Joe and I suffered and struggled a lot. And I kind of wish that someone had taken me a little bit more seriously when I said, like, I don't think he's getting even colostrum, which is like what you get before your milk comes in, and that he's getting frustrated. And I think that's why, like, we're all unhappy. So then, you're kind of like, here's your baby, go home, bye. Even though we just had all these issues and stuff. So my next video will be about my first week at home. Sorry this one was long. He's now 2.5 months old. He'll be 3 months old on Christmas Day. So it's kind of a long lost memory in a way. Like, so much happens between then that you just kind of like let it go. But it was kind of tough, and I wish I had, like, I wouldn't want to say more support, because there's plenty of support. I just wish people believed me more and like helped me more in a way. So sorry this is super long. Anyway, I'm gonna go feed him, because doesn't he need more food? Look at these cheekums. And thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have a magical day. Bye!